Hello, Algebra 1. Today we are going to continue talking about point slope and slope-intercept form. We're going to start with a graph, and we're going to identify point A. Remember, we always do our x-coordinate first, so this is going to be 1, 5. And then our slope, our m, we are going down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 2. Make sure you write this as a fraction, not a point, and then go ahead and actually simplify. Next, we're going to write our point slope form. We're going to start with y, and then the opposite of our y coordinate, so -5, equals our slope, and then parentheses, x, and the opposite of our x coordinate, -1. Now, from here, we are just going to go ahead and solve for y, and that puts our equation into slope-intercept form. Start off by distributing. Careful of your sign change here. -2 times -1 is +2. And then finally, we're just going to add the 5 over to move it away from the y. And we'll get y equals -2x plus 7. Notice this is m and 7 is b. And we can see, sure enough, by going backwards in our slope, that is where we hit the y-axis. Now, a new step that we're going to go ahead and do today is find point slope form and slope-intercept from 2 points. So what we're going to have to do is use the slope formula, which we have used in previous units. So I'm going to start off by labeling xy, xy, and then I'm going to find my slope first. I do the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. And then I'm going to simplify the top and bottom separately. Make sure you math frac and reduce this fraction, so we should get that m is -7/5. Now, here's where you have some student choice. You can use either of these coordinate pairs. It's up to you. So you can use this yellow point or you can use this purple point. There are actually 2 correct answers, one for each point. I'm just going to use the purple point. So I do y, the opposite of my y coordinate, equals my slope, and then x, and the opposite of my x coordinate. And this is one of the correct answers. The other correct answer you would get using the yellow point, and it would be y plus 4 equals -7/5 x minus 7. You do not need to provide both answers, just one of them. All right, let's go ahead and try this one more time. Start off by finding your slope. Second y minus first y over second x minus first x. This gives us 5 over 5, which is a slope of 1. Now pick whichever point you want. I'm going to do 5, 10, and write point slope form. Y, and then the opposite of your y coordinate, equals 1, which is your slope, x, and the opposite of your x coordinate. And there's point slope form. So our next obvious step is to go ahead and move to slope-intercept form. So we are going to do everything that we just did, but then we're going to distribute and solve like we did up here in number 1. Start off by finding your slope. So that is second y minus first y over second x minus first x. Simplify top and bottom separately. Don't forget to actually divide. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So that's your slope. Now we're going to go ahead and pick one of these 2 points. It's up to you. I'm going to go with the first one, and I write point slope form. Y plus 7 equals 4 parentheses x plus 3. Notice they were both minuses in the parentheses, so that means they're pluses when we're in point slope form. Now I go ahead and distribute, and then move my 7 over to have the y by itself. So I should have y equals 4x plus 5. Now, what's crazy is that if you went ahead and you used the other point, 1, 9, you would actually end up with the exact same answer. I guess it's not crazy, that's just how math works, but it's pretty cool. All right, let's try number 5. Label, and let's find our slope. Second y minus first y over second x minus first x. Your minuses, minus minuses become plus pluses. We have 3 divided by 3, which is 1. Pick one of your points, I'm going to go with this one. Write your point slope form. Y, and then the opposite of your y coordinate equals your slope, and then x, and the opposite of your x coordinate. A lot of ones here. All right, so that's point slope. Now we want to do slope intercept. So we'll go ahead and distribute. And then we want to get the y by itself, so we'll add 1 over. Those are going to cancel, and you're just going to get y equals 1x. All right, let's try this one more time before we look at an application problem. First, we'll find our slope. Second y. All right, so 4 minus 1. So second y minus first y over second x minus first x. And then evaluate. 4 minus 1 is 3 over 4. 3/4 is already simplified. All right, so now check it out. I'm going to use this point. I'm going to also use this space over here that I still have. So y, and then the opposite of my y coordinate equals my slope, x, and the opposite of your x coordinate. I want slope-intercept form, so I'm going to distribute. 3/4 times 4 is just 3, and then I'm going to add my 1 over. Okay. Now, here's the thing. This was great. Love to distribute, love point slope form, but we actually did not have to go ahead and do this. And that is because if you noticed, one of the points I gave you was B, your y-intercept, 0, comma, which means if I'm trying to go to slope-intercept form, I now have all of the information I need. I have my slope, which is 3/4, and I have my B, which is 4. So I didn't have to do point slope form. I could have just gone straight to my final answer. So when do you have to use point slope form first? It's when you don't have B. And again, that means 0, comma. Okay, that's your y-intercept. All right, now nothing stops you from doing point slope form. You can see I got the correct answer going the longer way. This is just kind of a shortcut. All right, so let's go ahead and let's try an application problem to show you how this could be useful. The original iPhone back in 2007 had a 3.5-inch display and it ran on the 2 gig network. Buyers could purchase the 4 gig version for $499, or they could spend $599 for the 8 gig version. We're going to write 2 ordered pairs. I prefer to make a table because then I can label my independent and dependent. Dependent is always cost. My independent is going to be my gigs. So I have 4 gigs for $499, and I have 8 gigs for $599. And now I'm going to find the rate of change, which remember is just my slope, and I'm going to do that by doing my jumps. Remember, your dependent or your y always goes on top, so we're going to divide 100 over 4, and that's going to be $25 per gig. All right, so this is my slope. Now I'm going to do point slope form. I'm going to choose this point, y, and the opposite of my y coordinate equals my slope, x, and the opposite of my x coordinate. And then it says convert to slope-intercept form. I'm just going to start doing that up here. I'm going to distribute. And then again, you want to get the y by itself, so we're going to add the $499 over. And that should give you y equals 25x plus $399. All right, so this is an equation that represents the cost of our phone. Okay, our 25 was something we already found. This is our dollars per gig. But what's this $399 talking about? Well, you're not just paying for data on your phone, right? Like you're paying for the actual phone itself as well. So the $399 is like the body of the phone. Okay, so like the literal physical phone itself. Now, let's say you bought a phone for $699, which honestly is still cheap by today's standards. Let's see how many gigs you would have had back then in 2007. $699 is a cost, and based on my table, I know my cost is my y coordinate. So I'm going to plug $699 in for y in my function rule. All right, so this is a type of problem we've solved before. We spent a whole unit on it. We're solving for x, so we're going to minus our $399 over. $699 minus $399 is $300. equals 25x. And then we're just going to go ahead and divide by 25 on both sides. And you're going to get x equals 12. And again, go up to your table. X is gigs, so make sure you have the appropriate unit. All right, so that was back in 2007. Imagine that we went through the same process for the iPhone 13 and iPhone 15, which honestly now are not even too new. I feel like a new iPhone is coming out every year. So this is some more recent information. 2007, the OG iPhone. 2021 was the iPhone 13. 2023 was the iPhone 15. So these are the equations that you would get if you went through this process that we did up here. So one thing that I want you to notice is that this was our price per gig. Look what has happened over the years. The gigs went from $25 per gig to 0.78, okay, less than $1 per gig. So the gig price has vastly dropped. However, this y-intercept is the body of our phone, that price. And what we're going to notice is that the phone price has increased tremendously. And I'm sure there are lots of reasons for this. But one thing that I can think of for sure, especially someone who, was around in 2007 and using those cell phones, is that the cameras on those cell phones were garbage. Okay, they were awful. And now these cameras that you have on your cell phones can rival, professional cameras. So I think one of the major major reasons that these prices have increased so much is because of the quality of the camera that you have. All right, so there you go. That was some more point slope and slope intercept form. I hope you found that interesting. Have a great day.